Okay, so let's say he's fired on Sunday. Coach Napier, whether or not he continues on as a lame duck or not, irrelevant. Who do they go after? And before we get to specific names, tell me the type of coach that, Florida means. It feels like they're going to need to make a splash hire. They did G5 route the last time. This did not play out well. I was telling somebody today, when Coach Napier was fired, I felt like I had to convince myself that this was a good hire. And I don't want to have to convince myself it's a good hire. I want to hear the name and be like, damn right, let's go win some ball games.
It's funny. You've probably seen it in your comment section. I've seen it in the Stadium and Gale comment section. Everybody loves everybody and everybody hates everybody. There is the same person that loves Marcus Freeman. The next comment hates Marcus Freeman. One person loves Lane Kiffin. The next one hates Lane Kiffin. Florida has never, in any sport, gone after a juggernaut of a head coach. They have never gone after the big name. Billy Donovan was an up-and-comer. Mike White was from Louisiana Tech. Todd Golden was from the University of San Francisco. Will Muschamp. Well, Ron Zook was a special teams coach. Urban Meyer was an up-and-comer, and yes, Utah did well, but he was only at Utah for 2 years. He was at Bowling Green before that. Will Muschamp was a defensive coordinator. Jim McElwain was at Colorado State. Dan Mullen was a name that everybody knew, still at Mississippi State, probably the one that people were most familiar with. And then
which is still not, necessarily a splash hire, but at least had some name recognition.
He had name recognition because he played at Florida. Had he not played at Florida, I don't know if fans would have loved the name at the time. And, you know, things were different then, in 1989, 1990 than they are now. Yeah, I think when you look at Florida, most coaches that Florida is looking at, if you will, are probably in the $8 to $9 to $10 million salary right now. Is Florida going to pony up 12, 13, $14 million? You've got a $20 million buyout. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of dineros. Now, they hired a new chief commercial officer. I don't think that should be anything that's overlooked about what Florida's trying to do from a revenue perspective. They're getting more money from ESPN and ABC for their contract, and they are not struggling in donations. And they also have an athletic department that doesn't mind taking on mountains and mountains of debt. Florida's going to have to be very unique. This is going to have to be a very unique Florida search because they've never done this before. They are going to have to pony up in the neighborhood of probably $100+ million in guaranteed contracts. And they've just never come close to doing that.
So I'm sure these two names are the two names you're seeing in your comments, just like I am. But Lane Kiffin and Marcus Freeman are the two names that I see the most, right? And fans, exactly like you said, one person loves them, next person hates them. I don't know that there's a perfect candidate out there, but these are the two names that I feel like we see the very most. Which one is a better fit for Florida? I mean, I personally take either one of them. I think it's a massive improvement. I also think that Dan Thompson for head coach is a massive improvement. So, I mean, the bar is somewhat low in this situation for me. But what do you think about the two of them?
So Lane Kiffin is obviously the name that most people get excited about because he is an offense-heavy guy. He talks smack. He's kind of fun, entertaining. He fits the kind of swagger of UF. He comes with his downfalls too, right? His defenses have been relatively average. He's won some big games, but has lost some stupid games in his career. He's not necessarily known as a tenacious recruiter. And what does the staff look like that he's going to bring over? Pete Golding is a great, coordinator. Charlie Weiss Jr. so far has done a good job, under him at FAU.
PTSD from anybody named Charlie Weiss.
Yeah, well, hopefully we won't need a cooler for him to get around the practice facility, a motorized cooler. But, I think that Lane Kiffin is the name that gets people most excited. He's making $9 million. Is Lane Kiffin worth $12, $13 million to hire? I don't know. I do think that Lane Kiffin, if he wanted the job, would be offered the job, and he would come to the University of Florida. I think that he knows that there's a ceiling at Mississippi. Mississippi is a good school. in football. They've obviously proven that he's probably going to go to the college football playoff or come very close to it this year. There's just going to be a natural ceiling when it comes to recruiting there. They don't have the same booster support that a school like the University of Florida has. And he's an alpha, right? He wants one of those top 10, top 15 jobs. And no matter what he does at Ole Miss, it's never going to be a top 15 job. So you start to think of all the top 15 schools that are around the country. He's worked at 2 of them already, at Tennessee and USC. He's not going to go back. And then some you look at, they don't have open jobs, and they probably won't have open jobs in the future. And some just don't make sense culturally. Like Lane Kiffin is never going to go coach at Notre Dame. Right. So is Florida, Florida State could be another one of those schools that's in that top 15 that he could potentially see himself at. But when you start to look at the list, if he really wanted to be that alpha, that is probably his only opportunity. Marcus Freeman has some frustrations, I know for a fact, at Notre Dame about some personnel decisions. There's certainly a limitation about the type of person academically and character-wise that he can that he wouldn't be able to that he's not able to recruit at Notre Dame that he might be able to at a school like Florida. He's
all the criminals. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it, but I'm not saying it either. And so, I think Marcus Freeman, again, a Midwest guy, a guy that, is from Ohio, played at Ohio State, is from the Midwest. I know Penn State is going to throw a lot at him. I think that they also might try to throw some money at Eli Drinkwitz as well. But Marcus Freeman, young, smart, defensive guy. A lot of people are frustrated by his offense. I'll be honest with you, it's not his offense. He doesn't really have control over the offensive coordinator hiring at Notre Dame right now. So, I don't know if we know what Marcus Freeman's ceiling is on the offensive side of the football. So again, we could go down the list, right? Eli Drinkwitz or Rhett Lashie. You could name 10 coaches, and there's going to be pros and cons for both.
Are there other names outside of Kiffin and Freeman that you personally like, that you think might be a good fit here?
I think that there's a few. And again, everybody's going to kind of come with, well, they did this or they did that. And, that's not good enough for the University of Florida. I think everybody's number one in the country would probably be Dan Lanning. I don't think that he's going to come to Florida. I don't think Kirk Cignetti is a natural fit at the University of Florida. I like Kenny Dillingham quite a bit as well. He's still building up, but when you talk about swagger, when you talk about offense, when you talk about overperforming expectations, he's a guy, he went to, he's Mike Norvell's offensive coordinator. If that position opens up, whenever FSU can scrape a couple shekels together to get rid of, Mike Norvell, is that a spot where Kenny Dillingham ends up? I think, a name that Gator fans have to get familiar with is Brent Key at Georgia Tech. Whether you like him or not, I think that that's a name that you have to look at. So I think I've named all of the names that Florida is looking at so far. There's going to be more, but those names that I just listed and we talked about are probably the names that Gator fans should get most familiar with.
Okay, so you mentioned multiple times that Florida, you mentioned Florida's within the top 15 for attractive jobs. Is that where you would put Florida? Are they a top 10 job? Are they a top 15 job? And what do you think are the expectations from the fan base versus the expectations maybe nationally? Like, where do we wear orange and blue glasses and we think that this job is more valuable than it actually is? I'll get right back to the video, but first I want to give some love to Alumni Hall. If you are going to Gainesville for the Mississippi State game on Saturday, make sure you stop by Alumni Hall for all the very best in game day apparel. Their selection is so elite, and you guys need to make sure you're stopping by their location. It's on Archer Road if you're in Gainesville, or if you're not, you can shop online at alumnihall.com. We appreciate Alumni Hall for their support, and make sure if you go into the store, you tell them Allie Peak sent you.
No, I don't think so. I think when you look at fertile recruiting grounds, I think when you look at NIL, they've got a great NIL structure in place right now. I think when you look at weather, conference, ability to recruit travel-wise, there's no state income tax. You've got a very good academic institution that people are proud of. You've got a supportive. Listen, Scott Strickland has flaws. He's got a ton of flaws, right? I don't want that to be diminished when I say this statement. He's thrown so much money, not just amount of dollars, but like per capita as the size of budget into football over the last 4 years that it's hard to say that he doesn't care about football. Could he have made some better choices for some things? Sure. They're all human beings at the end of the day, but I think you have a very supportive, you have a Gatorade program, you have a great administrative support ecosystem that's been built and developed. You have a brand new practice facility, an indoor or football only facility. You have all of the things that you want. Now all you have to do is go out and win football games. And I think you're going to probably come to the University of Florida with a pretty loaded roster. So I still think that Florida is at worst a top 15 job, and at best definitely a top 10 job. They've just had some bad luck, and I think that you can turn that around pretty quickly.
How successful do you think they can be with the list that they're looking at? I mean, how many people are going to tell them no before they get to the guy that they settle on? Or are they not going to settle because they're going to get the first one on their list?
The problem is no matter who's on your list and how well you think that you can get them, there's so many factors that play into whether that coach is attainable or not. One is the cost. How much are you willing to spend? And what do you value that spend? It's not a matter of can I pay this coach 13 million or can I afford to pay them 15 million? It's not just that. It's like, do I value them at a $15 million coach, right? And $2 million over the course of a 7-year contract is basically another full year of paying over another person, right? And then you start to look at buyouts and everything else. It also depends on how far that coach goes into the playoffs, right? Are you okay with not having a coach until the first week of January, the second week of January? How comfortable or uncomfortable does that make you feel? What does that do to your recruiting class? Those are things that all factor in. And then if a coach goes far, are they a little bit more attached to that school now? Do they feel like they might only be one win away from a national championship? What does their roster look like? What does that talent acquisition look like? I do think that of the 5 or so names that are on the list right now for Florida, I think that at least one of them is attainable. I think they're all potentially attainable, but I think you'll probably get one of those 5.
Okay. So you have confidence in this administration, in Scott Strickland, to be able to make a hire that at least a large faction of Gator Nation is happy with.
No, because I think Gator Nation's going to be upset regardless. I think that unless it's Lane Kiffin or unless it's Marcus Freeman, I think that there's going to be a lot of frustration. I think if it's Marcus Freeman, there's going to be frustration. I think even with Lane Kiffin, I think that there's a lot of people that still don't like him or don't think that he can win the big game or that he's a fit for the University of Florida long term, or that he's going to piss off some boosters, or that they're too old school and they're not going to put up with his antics. I don't think that there's a perfect hire out there. I don't think that there's been a perfect hire for a while. I do think, and I don't want to forget and create revisionist history, like Billy Napier on paper, outside of maybe some of his offensive stuff, and you're like, oh, maybe he'll change, at the University of Florida, like Billy Napier was kind of the perfect hire on paper, right? He's a guy that had turned down South Carolina, he had turned down Tennessee. He had made Louisiana into a 10-2, 11-1 program. He had multiple guys that went on to, transfer portal, went on to the NFL, and even guys that, came to Florida that went, to the NFL. It just didn't work out. He didn't change for what happened with NIL. He didn't really change his offensive philosophy. Obviously, he hired a lot of his friends. He didn't use the opportunity to upgrade his position. He just brought his friends along and said, the same quote he had a couple of weeks ago, like, this is what got us here, like about calling plays. Yeah. Well, like, obviously what got you here is now obviously going to get you fired because you weren't willing to change with the program.
Honestly, I think you could probably argue that he got there despite his play calling, not because of it, in all of his stops. His offense was, I think he had a top 10 offense once in the 9 years that he's called offenses.
It's surprising that happened. It must have been in spite of itself.
It probably, it was what Louisiana basically had insane numbers against the Patsies that they played. Still lost all of the important games that season, and I want to say they were ranked 8th in the country or something, but he just essentially ran it up against some lesser opponents.
Must have been early on in his career too, before all his tendencies got figured out.
It was a little earlier on in his career. And I mean, I don't know, they don't let people like you and I into their press conferences at this point, but the best question that I would ask is your best ranked offense at Florida was your first year here, and it was still only 38th in the country. So, like, not really anything to write home about. But how in the world has there not been more self evaluation along the road? I mean, there has been changes at other positions. And we got a different strength coach. Like, it's not like he has made zero staff changes. He's just made zero staff changes when it comes to how he operates his offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think even some of your staff changes have not really worked out, right?
Right.
You fired your friend that was a strength and conditioning coach. Then you went and you lost your strength coach to Boston College. Then you promoted a guy that was well liked, but probably not the resume of somebody that's the strength and conditioning coach at the University of Florida. You made changes on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Ryan Roberts has done a good job, but it took you three offensive coordinators to land on Ron Roberts. A lot of your other coaching decisions that you've made haven't really worked out, and a lot of people kind of ran away from you into better opportunities. You let Will Harris go, and now he's the defensive backs coach at Miami, and you chose somebody else over Will Harris because you didn't want to listen to him and what some of his complaints were. Jay Bateman, who you let go, just stifled your entire offense for 4 quarters at Texas A&M. So, he made a lot of changes. He brought some people from outside of his circle, but none of those. The same way don't think he is a good offensive play caller. I don't think that he's a great coach evaluator either. And I think that you're going to see that next season when a lot of the coaches landed jobs that are worse than the University of Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's a fair assessment. And I do think we talked about it pre-show. You touched on it here, but I do think it is a massive indictment on him that there is nobody that really anybody would feel fully confident in taking over as an interim, taking the reins of. I think about when Zook went down, he had Charlie Strong, right? There were people on his staff that were more than capable of filling in his shoes. Urban Meyer at one point had Dan Mullen and Charlie Strong on his staff, both of which could have been an interim head coach at any moment if need be. Even Will Muschamp had people on his staff that could step up if needed. And there's not a whole lot of people on this staff that fit this role. But this has been interesting. It's going to be, I think, a little bit of a wild ride for Gator Nation for the next few weeks, but I think it's well needed at this point. Worst record in 80 years. Florida football deserves better than this. Their fans deserve better than this. And honestly, these players, even though they love him, deserve better than this. And I do feel like you kind of don't know what you don't know, if that makes sense. Like Eric would tell you that they all loved Zook. They didn't know that they could be so much better when they had Urban Meyer come in and coach them. And so I am hoping we'll retain a lot of this roster and they could have a similar effect.
Well, a lot of them love him because they've built a relationship, and some of them are 4, 5, 6 year relationships, over the years, and you're going to have somebody that might challenge you differently, or maybe you're not able to get away with the same things that you've been able to get away with, or maybe there's going to be somebody else that gets an opportunity. So of course you're going to be upset if the person that recruited you and created this blueprint for you changes, but it's not working at the University of Florida. And that means that you're going to have some casualties in the roster and some people are going to be unhappy. But for the sake of the University of Florida, it's time to move on. And it's probably been time to move on for a while now.
All right. Well, Dan, we appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can follow you and argue with you on social media. And they can check out your work, obviously, at Stadium and Gale, which tell us all the platforms it's available on.
Yeah. So we're Stadium and Gale is available anywhere you get podcasts, available here on YouTube as well. We have 2 different shows. We also we do a show on Monday night and a show on Friday afternoon during the football season. Florida Basketball Hour and Breakfast with the Gators are also on our network. So go support them. You can follow me on Twitter at DK Thompson. Please don't argue with me, but if you do, make sure it's factually based, and I'd be willing to go back and forth with you. But other than that, Allie, it's great seeing you. Hopefully I'll see you in Gainesville this week for homecoming. I'm heading up tomorrow.
All right. Well, we will talk to you real soon. Appreciate it.
See ya. Thank you so much.
Just before we go, a quick reminder on Sleeper. With my code PEEK, P-E-E-K, you get a free $20 entry on the Sleeper app. No deposit needed. But check the Sleeper app and make some money with us this season. We appreciate Sleeper for their support.